Hello everyone, today I am answering an Ask Which question, which we were sent a while ago. I am trying to catch up. I apologize, we've been really focused on the classes that are on the seminary. We have a new one coming up on Death Magic, which will be running for 3 to 4 months. And a lot of my time has been spent in preparing for that course and teaching the other courses that we currently have going on. But I digress. Let me just let you all know what the question was, which was, do you ever worry about something with malicious or parasitic intent being drawn to, now this was in regards to a wand that I shared the process of making, but I'm going to substitute in general, magical tools. So do you ever worry about something with malicious or parasitic intent being drawn to your magical tools, like an exposed physical extension of your spiritual and or energetic body? So let's start with a couple of the presuppositions in this question. One, do you believe that there are entities that could have parasitic and or malicious intent? The answer for me, at least, is yes. I do believe that there are entities that could have malicious and or parasitic intent. I don't necessarily consider those to be the same thing. I do think that there are entities that can have malicious intent towards me or towards others, parasitic or not. And I do believe that there are parasitic entities that may or may not additionally have harmful malicious intent. Not all parasites are necessarily intentionally meaning malicious harm. Like, they may not intend it to be malicious harm. That doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't malicious harm, or that it doesn't cause malicious harm. So why am I belaboring that point in particular? Well, for example, I've definitely had parasitic friendships where someone takes and takes and takes my energy and damages my well-being, and that person may not have malicious intent, but it still does harm to me, and therefore I need to have stronger and firmer boundaries against their parasitic nature. I hope that made sense. Okay. So, do I believe in spiritual entities that could mean harm? Absolutely. Do I believe that there are parasitic entities? Absolutely, with intent to harm or not harm, going either way. Do I believe that they are attracted to magical tools? Yes, I do. In particular, I feel as though magic in general can serve as like a beacon that attracts entities to it. And sometimes those entities prove beneficial or instructive, and sometimes those entities prove harmful or malicious, or both. So the next part of the question is, do I feel as though they are attracted to these tools because they are an extension of my energetic body? Okay, so let's break that part of the question down. Yes, I do believe in an energetic or spiritual body. I teach classes, both public and private, on getting in touch with the energetic body, on being able to project it out of the physical body and go dream walking, for example. So yes, I absolutely believe that the energetic body exists. I also believe that sometimes my tools are an extension of my energetic body. So, for example, I am a martial artist, and one of the things I do in martial arts is sword practice. And when I am practicing with swords, I treat them as an extension not just of my physical body, not just in a sense with proprioception extended all the way to the end of the blade, but also as an extension of my spiritual or energetic body. It's how I was taught and it's how I practice. All martial arts for me is both a physical and spiritual exercise. Does that mean it has to be for you? Absolutely not. Now, if you're practicing certain forms of martial arts, it is also a spiritual movement, and there might be a concern if you were practicing it only as a physical art and without the spirituality of it, that it would be misappropriation. But in general, I am not saying that you have to treat all martial arts as a spiritual exercise. I just do. It is part of my everyday spirituality. And I am very familiar with extending myself through my tools as an extension of my spiritual and or energetic body. This takes place for me in martial arts, in cooking, in cleaning, in gardening, and with tools that the average magical practitioner would look at and recognize as magical tools, like my wands, like my stick that I use far more often than I use a wand, like my cane, and like my crystal ball, for example. Those extensions are not always on. So, in the case of my wand, I only extend myself through it when I am actively using my wand. And therefore, my concern for attracting a harmful or malicious or parasitic entity is that they would be attracted to magical working in general and the entirety of my form. And therefore, I have protective steps that I take to prevent that from occurring. I also have steps that I take in my cleansing rituals every single day that I do to prevent that from occurring. I am potentially overly concerned with harmful and malicious entities because that has been such a huge portion of my practice through the years, doing banishings, doing exorcisms, doing home cleansings. I teach classes on demonology and demonolatry. I teach classes on harmful, subversive, and malicious entities and recognizing and dealing with them. I have a client who's been learning that from me for years. So it's a big part of my practice, recognizing that these entities exist. And because so much of my practice has been banishing them, trapping them, teaching others about them, I probably take some excessive steps in prevention than the average person would need to. I'm pretty on top of that, and it's a major part of my practice. But there are only a couple of tools that are on all the time. Most of the time, it is an extension of my spiritual and energetic body when I'm holding it. So I'm actively protecting all of myself and my surroundings, and also whoever I'm doing services for, if that is the case. If I am performing a service for someone else, I'm also protecting them from anything harmful, malicious, parasitic, etc. But I do have a tool that I will use as an example of the ones that are on all the time. It is not the only tool I have that is on all the time, but it is one of the ones I will use as an example. My crystal ball is on all the time. It is not the only tool that is on all the time, but it is the one I'm going to use as an example to answer this question. It is left on all the time as an extension of my spiritual and or energetic body, as an extension of my perception. I'm not using sight here because it's not just an extension of my sight. It is an extension of my awareness to very specific places, and in preparation of very specific actions being taken against me and mine. It is on all the time in certain realms that I walk in as a spirit. I don't care whether you believe me about that or not. That is very much part of my practice, is world walking. And it is on all the time there so that I'm aware of certain things occurring in those realms. And so certain entities can contact me all the time. It is my spiritual telephone and alarm system and so many different things, and it's on all the time. I used to use a connected control ring. I believe that this came up in my class that I recorded on how to use crystal ball, is that I had a control ring that allowed me to muffle it or turn it up in volume depending upon need, and additionally prevented other people from using it to harm me, because that tool was on me all the time, whereas the crystal ball was sometimes at home or at the shop or whatever. My control ring was actually stolen, and it was stolen by someone who I am well informed had harmful intentions towards me, both in the mundane world, in a very real world sense of stalking, harassing, and trying to damage my reputation, and also had intentions against me magically. I was told, for example, that she had kept things that I drank out of in order to direct harm towards me using that, that she kept hairs that she'd gathered, the kind of stuff that I always figured no one really bothered with, because if I want to direct harm at someone, I don't need any hair. I don't need a can of fizzy water that they drank out of. Like, I don't need those things, so I always assumed that that was kind of a myth, but nope, it's not. Good to know. And I'm talking very freely about this, although I don't intend to name the person, because I'm not scared. It doesn't bother me. She's not the first, she's not the last. But in terms of, she had a tool that was an extension of my energetic body, that connected to another extension of my energetic body that was on all the time, and she intended to send harmful and malicious energy that way to me. This was confirmed by multiple sources. So what did I do, right? I said no. I severed my connection with the ring. I have yet to decide if I will ever get another one. So far I haven't needed one. I've created a mental dial for the crystal ball where I turn it down and turn it up. As for her harmful energies or malicious entities attaching to my spiritual body, it's mine. Just like this is mine. I can say no, and so can you. Now, learning to say no and make it stick, I'm not going to say that that's, I don't want to say it's hard either, because if you say it's hard, then it becomes hard. So I don't want to say, oh, it's easy. But I also don't want you to take away from this, like, oh, well, not anyone can do that. Only someone who's special can do that. No, anyone can learn to do that. Anyone can learn to make witchcraft work around the power of their autonomy, their personhood, their refusal to be controlled, manipulated, taken advantage of, or harmed, which is not meant at all in a victim-blaming sense. Sometimes, even when we fight back, we lose. But that does not mean that there is no power in learning how to fight back. Sometimes when we say no, someone hurts us anyway, but that doesn't mean that there isn't power in saying no. And in this case, my refusal was stronger than her attempt. And that is what I have spent years honing, is my ability to refute someone else's magic sent against my own. Whether that is someone else with a mundane body running around on Earth, or something like an entity. This is actually made easier in this case by the fact that I considered the ring an extension of myself, because I have far more control and power over an extension of myself than I do over anything else except for literally myself. I have the most power over me. And therefore, I have a great deal of power over something that is an extension of me. This is one of the reasons to learn to treat your tools as an extension of your energetic or spiritual body, so that you have so much command and control over them. All right, I think I've answered that question very thoroughly. I did want to keep this video short. So if you have questions for Ask a Witch, please be sure to drop them in the comments below or send them to staff@sanctumofthecraft.org. Again, that is staff@sanctumofthecraft.org, or join our Discord server and ask us there. We have a whole section on there called Ask a Witch, which is where I'm pulling most of these questions over the next few weeks. Be safe out there, everyone.